and welcome back to Visions. I'm Mirella Rich. If you've just joined us, we're here with Kurt Esser and Irving Selwick from the Justice Project. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you.
Can you tell us now the elections are coming up and you're working on an index for the Justice Project? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, let me just mention a bit of background. My background is as a social researcher and a pollster. I published a poll in a couple of the major newspapers in Australia for nearly 25 years. So I have some little experience in constructing questionnaires. Now, we thought it would be useful if we constructed a questionnaire which asked questions about human rights, the rights of refugees, the rights of Australian citizens in all sorts of situations, and got politicians to answer it. Mm. And we're saying to the politicians, we'll assess you, not about your views about economics or your views about all sorts of other things, but your views about human rights. Mm. So we're not going to comment on anything else about you, but we are going to tell the community what you think about human rights, and we want you to answer a questionnaire. Now, we've developed a questionnaire which includes 21 questions, and we think that from a human rights point of view, we can determine whether someone should answer yes or no, or agree or disagree to each of those questions. We've tried to make them as unbiased as possible, and I've brought my experience to that because it's important in doing a survey to ask questions which are not loaded, but they do have a point of view, as distinct from perhaps other political questions where they don't have a point of view. Each of these we judge to be either correct or incorrect in terms of people's view about human rights. Now, we want to ask politicians how they believe, what they believe, and we want them to develop an index. If someone answers yes or positively to every one of those 21 questions, they'd score 100%. If they answered positively to 50%, they'd score 50 out of 100. If they answered negatively to all of them, they'd score a 0. We want to publish that to indicate to people not how they should vote, not how they should view other things, but how they should assess each of these politicians who answers this on this subject. And we'll then combine them all, so we'll be able to say that of all politicians, the index score is X, and it might be 100, it might be 72, or it might be 34, or whatever it is. And your individual score, Mr. or Mrs. or Ms. politician, is 68 or 73 or 22. And this is how you compare. And Labor Party candidates score this way, and Liberal candidates score this way, female candidates score this way, and male candidates score this way. Young candidates under 40 score this way, and old codgers like me score somewhere else. So we'll be able to present an analysis of how people react.
The other thing we wanted to do, Mirella, was to use the questionnaire and ask the leaders of the parties to answer our 21 questions. We thought there was some merit in that because a lot of people probably were more interested in how the parties as a whole would answer those questions rather than their individual candidates. So it's pretty important that we do that, and we're keen that that should happen to inform the public.
Very good.
Let me give you examples of just a few of the questions.
Love to.
For example, we ask, do you believe that asylum seekers who have arrived unauthorised should or should not be considered to have committed an offence under Australian law? Another question, do you support or oppose the use of an English language test in deciding whether people should be allowed to become Australian citizens? Now, there's a whole history of that. let me give you a couple of other examples. There's a human rights principle that people cannot be detained in prison without a proper legal hearing. Do you believe that all Australian laws should be governed by this principle, or that laws against terrorism need not be governed by this principle? Does the present risk of terrorism in Australia justify laws that impose a 5-year jail term on a journalist who reports that a person is being held under the powers referred under the terrorist powers? And finally, just as an example, does the war on terrorism justify the use of torture? So that's just important. A few examples of the sorts of questions we think are appropriate.
Beautiful. We're about to go to a break now. Stay with us. We'll be back with more very shortly.